Hello and welcome back to Red Tinted Glasses. Welcome back to the steak and black pudding pie at Pataudry for the month of September. And most importantly, welcome back to Calum, his long-awaited return to the podcast this season. Calum, great to have you back. The OGs are back in town.
We are. As soon as you mentioned, Stuart Armstrong signing, we need to talk about that. And then the pie talk, I thought, need to get in there, need to get involved in that.
It wouldn't be this podcast if we didn't have a signing or a pie talk to speak about, especially when you're on, as you said. Coming up on the show then this week, we'll speak about our hopeful starting 11 against Livingston, obviously on the back of all those signings, that game really taking that must-win feel to it. Also the European squad, which has now been confirmed, and a lot of discussion, certainly before the Scotland games on that as well. And of course, I suppose we'll start there. Stuart Armstrong, you mentioned him coming in. Calum, myself and Andy Skinner, when he was on the show, spoke about that maybe box-to-box midfielder missing out of the transfer window. Do you feel Stuart Armstrong ticks that box now signing for the Dons on a 2-year deal?
If you asked me that 5 years ago, I wouldn't have said Stuart Armstrong's box-to-box. Plays probably more in that front three, behind the striker. But now I suppose as he's getting on a bit, you can maybe see him more in that box-to-box role. Certainly, regardless, I think has the potential to be an excellent signing. The only concern is that he's not kicked the ball in anger since the 26th of April, I think it was, for Sheffield Wednesday. So there's a little bit of sort of worried about how ready he is going to be to go straight in, potentially against Livingston, or get straight into action soon anyway. However, given the fact he's 33 years old, he's an experienced pro, I've no doubt that he's kept himself in great shape over the summer. It's just about that match fitness. But I certainly think it's a great addition. It's sort of what we need. There's been a lot of shouts about bringing in players who know the league, or needing a spine of sort of Scottish players who kind of get it, for lack of a better term. And he certainly ticks that box. And if he can be half of what he was at Celtic, probably, then he's a great improvement to the squad, and probably starting 11 certainly as well.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting. As I said, we'll come on to our starting 11s for Livingston, see if you've got him in there. I think it's a smart acquisition, if you want to call it that. I did pick up on the club statement calling him an energetic midfielder, and as you said, maybe a few years ago, certainly that term applies to him, and it'll be interesting to see if he can regain that match sharpness, as you alluded to, having not played for a while, obviously, with the troubles that are going on at Sheffield Wednesday currently. And I think it's a little bit more of a calmer, experienced head. Shinnie and Nielsen, yes, they're experienced heads, but maybe don't have the calmness that Stuart Armstrong could bring. Do you also think maybe that Stuart Armstrong could actually play in a bit more of a further forward role, as opposed to one of that more deeper lying midfielders that I think, the likes of Palaversa, Shinnie and Nielsen can accommodate? It's maybe a bit more of an option. I personally feel Leighton Clarkson can push forward to challenge O'Sheesh in that role, and could Stuart Armstrong fill that opportunity as well?
I think he could as well. And I think if he's that sort of number 10, then as well, when off the ball, he will still do that work as well in terms of backtracking as well. I do think he'll probably play in behind the striker. He's certainly got the quality to, and I'm just not sure, obviously players sometimes move back into that deeper role in their more senior years. I don't know if Stuart Armstrong's necessarily suited to that. I think I could certainly see him in that sort of number 10 role. And you mentioned O'Sheesh, and then there's Polvara as well, those three competing, and then potentially Clarkson too. It's certainly a good position to be in. Where that leaves us for our starting 11s for Livingston, I don't know, because there's 8 competing for 3 positions if you include the sort of 10 in the midfield 3. But it's certainly something I can expect, and it's where we saw him play sort of his best football, I think, as well. Getting forward, getting in the box, because he's certainly creative. Hopefully, he still is energetic, as mentioned in the statement. If he can bring that and his creativity and the calmness you mentioned too, maybe not if we're heading towards winning a game 2-1 against fierce rivals, and a bit too calm without putting the ball away. Hopefully, less of that. But I think he's got a lot of quality and the experience, and as I mentioned, a guy who's played a lot of football in Scotland, played a lot of football at Premier League level. I think 149 appearances in the Premier League, over 50 caps for Scotland as well. He's a great addition, and hopefully, I know he's getting on a bit. Hopefully, he can still bring that energy too.
God, you really have done your research for your return to the podcast, haven't you? Interesting. Yeah, I think he does bring something to the squad, but can he also bring something to the younger members of the squad? I know a few people may be touching on it's a really experienced head to learn off of. And I just wonder if, coming to the end of his career, with the greatest of respect to Stuart Armstrong at 33, I'm sure he maybe still fancies playing for a few years longer, but could this move actually be, as I said, a astute piece of business? If you look towards the end of his career, could we maybe persuade him to come into the coaching? We've seen it with other former Aberdeen players working their way into the academy. That would be great for some of the younger players coming through, wouldn't it?
Certainly, if he doesn't decide to be a solicitor instead, I suppose.
Yeah.
But
turn that law degree into something useful.
Aye, perhaps. But I think that's certainly another great point. I mean, we see a lot of the aging players turn to that and get involved, and perhaps he's another one. But even in the dressing room, we've got a very young squad. Someone who's, as I mentioned, played so many games at that level, having that experience, winning trophies as well. Sometimes at our expense, unfortunately, but that experience, nonetheless, coming into our dressing room now provides a lot for our young squad to learn from, and that can only be a good thing. Another experienced head who's seen it all in the game, I suppose. He's still got that quality too. I mean, we've been mentioning that he's 33, he's maybe not, but I suppose nowadays players go on for a lot longer than maybe used to. So 33 is maybe not quite what it used to be, and he seems like a proper professional as well. As I mentioned, I've no doubt he's in great nick right now. So hopefully he can keep that fitness, keep that sharpness. He played quite a lot for Sheffield Wednesday when he returned to English football from Canada. Didn't quite complete 90 minutes ever, I don't think, however, but he started a lot of games. So he should still be in great shape. It's just that match sharpness that I'm concerned about. But in terms of experience for the other fellas to learn from, I don't think there's many better that you could attract to Aberdeen with experience like that.
And I think as well, it's one of those signings that, yes, is after the transfer window, but I don't feel as being an overly negative reaction to his addition. Nisbet was a generally positive, mainly I think by the fact of how we've started the league season. But I think this also feels a strong addition. And also, I suppose, since we last joined, doing a podcast, Esther Sockler's also left the club, going out on loan for the season to Serbia. Again, as discussed on the last show, probably feels like the end of his Aberdeen career. But again, for his departure, the Armstrong arrival maybe negates any negativity around that, because it does feel a solid addition to the squad overall.
Yeah, it certainly does. I think after that Falkirk game, I left saying to my pals and my dad that it felt like we needed 3 guys who can come in and improve this starting 11. And that was the day before deadline day. And I thought, there's no way that's going to happen. And it didn't happen on deadline day, but in fact, the day after. And I think him alongside Carlson and Nisbet certainly do that. As I said, that's 2 players that we've brought in that get the league kind of thing with experience playing here and know they can perform and should hopefully hit the ground running, as well as Carlson, who has the potential to be absolutely incredible if he stays fit. And in terms of Sockler as well, I really can't blame him. I know they said in this statement about wanting to search for first team football. I think last season with his injuries, it was very unfortunate for him when there was a real opportunity for him to go and stake that claim to be Aberdeen's striker. We obviously saw Hampden against Celtic and saw it in fits and starts as well. And he performed well in Europe. But right now, he would be 3rd at best down in the pecking order, probably as a striker, with Nisbet coming in, Lazetic, and then Jimmy Taline would probably prefer Kusini Yengi as well, you'd think too. So he'd be fourth choice at best. You can't blame him for wanting to go and play regular first team football. So wish him all the best. He gave us a few good times, Esther Sockler, and if that is the end of the road at Aberdeen, then so be it. Thank you for the overhead kick and the goal against Frankfurt and the bounce at Hampden too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, some of his goals were certainly spectacular, and as you said, also led to some very good celebrations, even if, barring the Frankfurt one, the overall result wasn't particularly positive. You've mentioned there, bringing in players that are either going to prove their worth to the starting 11 or add to the squad we've currently got on, and plenty of you getting involved in the comments on tonight's show. Michael Taylor, good to have you along, Michael, saying so many decisions for Jimmy to make come Saturday. It's a good headache to have. And me and Calum have kind of pulled together a starting 11 each, and it'll be interesting to see maybe how much they compare or differ. Because I'd actually totally forgot about Lazatic until you mentioned him about a minute ago, which is quite ironic because I know we were going to speak about the Bucky game as well. David McLennan saying that looks like we have a good squad on paper, just need to turn into some goals and form on the pitch, and I think that's going to be key now as well. That yes, now we've got the players, but it's imperative that form absolutely turns around. Don Seaton saying the balance of the squad looks good. We need to sort who's in the European team and who's in the domestic team. I'm sure we're going to kick on from now on. Let's keep our fingers crossed that starts on Saturday. We'll discuss the European team and domestic team in a second. And finally, Graham Gibbs saying, as opposed to competition or younger players looking to an older head, are we not gathering a squad with two options for every place? And I think, competition can certainly be a healthy thing to have. Potentially frustrating for the players that aren't getting those minutes, i.e. Dante Polvara. But I think, in all, most of those comments seem pretty fair in what it's going to be like for Jimmy and us as fans wondering in anticipation of that starting 11 for Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Graham's certainly correct in terms that we've got, two options for every place in the squad now. I think in the middle of that park, as I said, with those sort of three spots, the two holding midfielders and the 10, you've got Palaversa, Clarkson, Shinnie, Nilsson, Kjartansson, Polvara, Armstrong, Aushish. So 8 of them competing for 3 spots as well can certainly be a good thing. You'd hope they'd sort of all push each other on, and hopefully Jimmy can find the correct sort of balance between that. And in other areas of the park as well, we've certainly got options now. It's just about finding the right squad to get points on the board in the league, and then managing them correctly when we do have that sort of Thursday, Sunday, and hopefully deep runs in the cup as well.
Yeah, and I suppose going back to the comment from Don about the who's in the European team and who's in the domestic team, do you think there will be elements of that, certainly in the October period and potentially December period, when we are going Thursday, Sunday, for a European team, I suppose in inverted commas, along with a domestic team? If we look now at the European squad that's been picked, Alfie Dorrington probably the most glaring omission. I know one that's caused a lot of debate around developing Spurs player versus developing Jack Milne. For me, I'm more surprised that Christers Tobers is in the squad over Alfie Dorrington, given Christers Tobers hasn't kicked the ball in anger this season, regardless of my opinion on Jack Milne versus Alfie Dorrington. Kjartansson also omitted from the squad again after he was omitted from the playoff round. Bilalovic, who was brought in to that squad for Kjartansson, also misses out, as does Mitchell Freeman. Probably no real surprise that Peter Ambrose misses out. For you, I know when you messaged our group chat, Alfie Dorrington was the biggest surprise, wasn't it?
Yeah, certainly. I think in terms of Jack Milne, I think he was always going to be included because he's got that the homegrown quota, so it helps us essentially register someone else because we've got him, and we've seen him play a lot of football so far this season. Christers Tobers, certainly one that I was a bit shocked about, given we don't really know where he's at with his fitness now. We know he's back playing golf. That's a good thing, and surely the suggestion is he's nearing return if he's included in the European squad as well. I guess the one for me was Dorrington excluded with Gavin Malloy included. I think the Malloy inclusion is probably with the benefit of that you can cover left back if required, and he's our only sort of, well, I suppose we've got Knusta, but he's a left-sided centre back option as well. But if it was down to me, I would probably have Dorrington in over him regardless of that, because you could still have Graham Shinney at left back if necessary, if Gyamfi's not fit. But I can certainly understand why, because it's going to be a tough old season for us, so you need to have options to cover that position. But I was certainly surprised about Alfie Dorrington. I think he'll play more games domestically now. It's just about whether he starts playing now or when the European fixtures come around, because do we want to keep Jack Milne in that starting lineup and keep him in preparation for the European games if he's going to be included? And then likes of Bilalovic, I think we'll certainly see a fair bit of domestically, whether that's even off the bench, perhaps right now, because he doesn't look like he's maybe ready to start, or it just appears that way given the fact he's not. And then likewise Mitchell Frame, I suppose Gyamfi's going to be the first choice left back, but given his fitness issues, I think Mitchell Frame might get a decent chance as well domestically too. Kjartansson's a really weird one though, because of those 8 players I mentioned right now, even though when he was signed there was talk about him being one of the top 15 players of his age group, he seems to be right now at the bottom of the pecking order of those 8 players. And I get he's still a young lad, but when I've seen him, he looks certainly physically ready to play. It's just whether about fine-tuning that from the transition from Icelandic football to Scottish football, whether he's maybe not quite ready for that yet.
Or maybe not showing enough in training. But yeah, I have to agree, he's probably the one that from pre-season of the signings, maybe that stood out, as you said, the imposing figure and the way he certainly looked on the ball. I thought we might have seen him have some minutes by now. But yeah, I also agree, whether you play Milne or Dorrington, I think for me, you've got to continue playing Jack Milne at this moment in time. For me, as I've said, there's a nervousness to his game. You've got to cure that before we get to the European stage. Hopefully a few clean sheets along the way will help, but obviously the games are going to come thick and fast with, of course, the news that the Dundee United game has been rescheduled for the 23rd of September. So in between that Motherwell double header that me and Andy Skinner spoke about last week, we now have a Tuesday night trip to Tannadice. Of course, probably the next thing around that trip will be the ticket allocation, and maybe how little we get based on the last trip there. But yeah, I think I still suspect in the back of my mind somewhere that I wonder if Alfie Dorrington's carrying some sort of knock or niggle, because he didn't look right in that Bucharest game. I thought neither of him or Milne looked right, and we haven't really seen Alfie since. So I wonder if there's maybe something going on there, but that is with absolutely no substance whatsoever. But yeah, I think apart from that, no real surprises. I get where you're coming from with Malloy, maybe the surprise that he's in there, but I think you maybe covered why he is. The fact that he can cover left back, as we've seen this season at Morton, and also cover left centre back. So the fact he's probably that dynamic defender in covering a couple of positions has seen him included. The Dons did also travel to Buckie in the Aberdeenshire Cup, which they'll compete now in the final against for Martin. Lazetic got a couple. I know for those of you on Twitter who follow a Red point of view, will have seen the goals on his account, the Panenka penalty, but also those of you that follow Ryan's account will have seen the praise for Gyamfi's performance, who played at left back in that. I just wonder if the 45 minutes I think Gyamfi got, an hour for Lazetic, it could be the other way around. If that maybe indicates starts are in the offing for one or both this weekend.
I think so, and I'm certainly glad to see them get minutes, because certainly much needed. I was surprised Gyamfi was even included, because I didn't know he was even nearing fitness. So it's certainly encouraging, because he's one where I think had he been fit to start the season and had a proper pre-season as well, then things maybe wouldn't have made that much of a difference, but we could be feeling a bit more hopeful at this point, because he's a lad with pretty decent pedigree coming through the Schalke academy. At times we've looked quite unbalanced with Jensen and Devlin on either side, and him coming in, I think will only be a good thing. And I know we've got to caveat it with no respect to Bucky, but it's a Highland League side. But apparently he was certainly very impressive in that 45 minutes, I think it was. And I think maybe now that he's got a little bit of minutes under his belt, he might start to come in. We might see him in the first team. Whether he can complete a 90 minutes just now is probably not. But we're going to have to start playing these guys who aren't quite there yet, because if they're not going to build the fitness by starting games, how are they going to do that? But certainly encouraging. And with Lazetic, the 2 goals, first of all, the Panenka guy seems to have a lot of confidence for a guy who's not scored a lot of goals. So that's certainly encouraging to me, and the way he took the other goal as well. Certainly promising signs for him. And he's a young lad as well. He'll improve, you'd think, under Jimmy Tulin, and the fact we've got him. But I think the fact now Nisbet's here as well, it takes pressure off Lazetic for him to sort of be the guy to save us as well, because Kevin Nisbet is there. But I think it's only a good thing we've got that competition now, and I am certainly excited to see more of Marko Lazetic, a 6'4" Serbian. That could be really interesting, I think, at times in Scottish football. So I'm looking forward to seeing him get some minutes.
And I think so am I, but also I think the good thing for him getting a brace against Bucky, and as you said, with all due respect to Bucky, it doesn't really matter the opponent for a striker. They love scoring, and goals will breed confidence. And if you've said for a striker that's maybe not got a lot of goals, certainly that was documented when we signed him, he's not lacking confidence to chuck in a Panenka penalty 5 minutes into a cup semi-final. Like, again, some people will say, oh, it's not really a real cup. Again, tell that to the Highland League players. Those players, it is important to get 1 minute in the leg, but also the confidence levels as well. And I think a really good point you made there about Nisbet returning, one, to maybe take some pressure off Lazetic, but also secondly, Lazetic can maybe learn a thing or two from Nisbet. And again, we talk about Stuart Armstrong being that experienced player coming in and players learning from it. Kevin Nisbet's been around the block in Scotland. When you've got Kusini Yengi and Lazetic coming in with no experience of Scottish football, maybe Nisbet's a player that they can learn off of. Yes, the Yengi shout might be a bit unpopular, but we'll come on to that. So yeah, we've covered both the European, and we'll come on to the domestic. But before we do, just another reminder of the Lifestars silent auction that we've got on the go just now. Your chance to win 2 tickets for the Legend Lounge this season for any game, which does include the European ties. A reminder, there is a £400 reserve on that bid. To place your bids for these auction items, please email redtintedglassespodcast@gmail.com. And thank you to those that have currently bid on the 2 main stand tickets for every home European group stage fixture. It has to be clarified, it is just the group stages. If we do qualify, the tickets don't cover that. So thank you for the bids that have come in for that. We will look to close that main stand auction item after the Livingston game. So if you do want to grab that, please do email redtintedglassespodcast@gmail.com and enter your bids for either the main stand tickets or Legends Lounge. And Calum, that then takes us into the weekend's game, and it really does have a must-win feel. Again, lots of you in the comments tonight, West Coast Dawn saying no excuses now come the Livy game, obviously on the back of the squad discussion and the signings. Can't be bothered as well, reiterating that, no ifs, no buts, this is a must-win. Michael Taylor as well, no excuses come Saturday, 3 points please, Livy will come to frustrate, we need to find a way to counter that. And Graham Gibb asking, I wonder if the starting 11 on Saturday will be dictated by who is match fit. Jimmy Tulin staying very coy about who is ready to play. Livingston come to Pittodrie, Calum, 9th in the table, sitting on 4 points. I said Falkirk was a must-win, but yeah, this one definitely feels like a must-win, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly does. If you said I'd be excited about a Livingston game after that Falkirk game, I think you were crazy. But now with those additions, I certainly am excited to see them get involved. But we need to win. There's no doubt about it. It's Livingston at home, and that's no disrespect to Livingston. Look, we've certainly struggled against them both down the road and up here. as well at times. I think David Martindale's sort of, he's known for having a stodgy side, but I think they're not quite the same in terms of terror ball as they were last time round in the Premiership. And look, they've had a better start to the league campaign than us. They'll have some confidence that maybe we might be lacking in places. We need to get 3 points off on the board. I thought after that game, the game against Hearts and Celtic, the games against them, I thought, okay, 3 home games in a row with Falkirk, Livingston, Motherwell. That's a good chance to put a decent run together now. It's not got off to a fantastic start, but a home game against the newly promoted side, anything other than 3 points, I will not be a happy bunny. And not only that, I'd be happy if it went in off Cassini Yengi's arse and we won 1-0. But I would really like to see a good performance and the side sort of starting to gel as well. I really want us to hammer them, if I'm honest, to really get a feel-good factor back about the place.
Yeah, and I think, I agree on both points. Part of me doesn't care how we win, but the other part of me is like you. I want a good performance. And it's funny you saying, a newly promoted team at home, nothing less than 3 points will do. Well, look how that turned out last time we faced a newly promoted team. And who'd have thought after the 24th of May we'd have been saying against the 2 newly promoted teams that they're both must-win games. But here we are, and that's how times change in football. Certainly so quickly as well. Taking Vore along for his first league game of the season. He has only been to 1 game so far this season. That was Morton, so hopefully his good luck streak continues. He will be in attendance at Motherwell to, again, hopefully continue his unbeaten run in cup football supporting the Dons. But Livingston, again, this season, you said Martindale's maybe moved away from some of his more known tactics, let's call it, and signed a lot of experience. Also signed former Aberdeen player Connor McLennan. Very good move from his agent, getting him to Livingston. Adam Montgomery as well.
Why have you said that?
Because I'm coming on this because, of course, Livingston do have former players, McLennan, Stevie May, Adam Montgomery. You know where this is going. And they've also signed experience, Kame Kerr, who's maybe not been playing as much for Livingston, but you've got Danny Wilson and Ryan McGowan in their defence. Mo Silla, who for me was really impressive at Dundee last season, anchoring the centre of midfield. Scott Pittman, who just seems to run and run and run. And Robbie Muirhead, a bit of height, pace, and can find the back of the net up top. So I think quite a successful transfer window from Livingston. And, had they not conceded late on to Hearts last time out, they would have probably been quite happy with 5 points to start the season.
Yeah, certainly. I think they'd probably still be happy with the 4 points that they've got. Martindale will, of course, be fuming with them thrown away in the last minute against Hearts. But look, yeah, they've started well. They've got a lot of guys who've been around the block in Scottish football as well. However, there's one fella I do want to mention, and that's Bakilla, I believe his name is, a 6'2", 36-year-old who I hadn't heard of, but having looked at him, he's spent a lot of time in the Netherlands, Belgium, and Turkey. So I wonder what he's got in his locker. I'm intrigued to see him in action as well. But look, it's a David Martindale side. We know it's not going to be easy regardless. And you might look at their squad on the face of things and think we should be destroying them. But as I said, it's David Martindale. They'll make things difficult regardless. And I think they have moved away, or they're certainly not quite as, dogged and just relying on that sort of, using the pitch down the road, and that's hoping that'll keep them up, as well as being very physical. I think there is certainly quality in there. Lewis Smith's grabbed 2 goals and an assist so far this season. Pittman, you mentioned, 2 goals as well so far in the league. They're no mugs. They're no mugs, and it certainly won't be easy, but we should be taking the game to them, taking control, and we've had difficulties breaking teams down. You mentioned Ryan McGowan and Danny Wilson, 2 very, very experienced centre-backs. They might struggle with a bit of pace, but we struggle getting in behind teams and breaking them down. So it's going to be a real test. If we're playing the ball in front of them every single time, I'm sure they'll deal with it.
Yeah, I mean they've got experienced centre backs, as you said, Ryan McGowan and Danny Wilson, but then Adam Montgomery and Finlayson on at right back, so they've got youth on the outside as well. But I think the other interesting thing to note is, yeah, I think you're right. Luke Livingston are going to come here as no mugs and will probably look to sit in and be stuffy. You look at the formation that they went with at Parkhead, a 5-4-1. No intent to really look to win the game. I think they had 18% possession, no shots. But in general, I think 3 of their games this season they've had a 4-3-3 formation as well. Of course, this game's a bit unique in the fact there'll be 2 sets of brothers playing on opposing sides. The Shinnie brothers probably likely to start on the bench, and one Yengi brother likely to start, albeit for Livingston. Tete likes to play out on the left wing, and then that's when Connor McLennan comes on. And yeah, again, you know where this is going. If the game's 0-0, the longer it goes on. But we know that they have an aerial threat, a physical threat. I think it's really important that we get that first goal, and part of me feels it's really important we get it early as well, just to prevent any frustration really kind of creeping out from the crowd because of, again, how the season started.
Yeah, I think it's very important they capitalise on the sort of slight feel-good factor we've got with those sort of 3 late additions to the squad, because football fans are fickle, and I include myself in that. If it's half an hour gone and Livingston are being really stodgy, we're having a lot of the ball but not really doing anything with it, the frustration from the few weeks previous might return. So a fast start, and it changes the game as well. It makes them come out to play. I have to come out to play rather than them having something to hold on to as well. So an early goal would certainly ease our nerves and open the game up a bit as well, which I think would certainly benefit us. I don't know if 2 brothers on opposite sides have ever played each other. However, since you mentioned that must be a first, or certainly an extreme rarity in Scottish football anyway. And you mentioned about the 5 at the back as well. I do wonder if they'll come up here with a 5 at the back, because I've noticed that they did go with the 4 against Hearts and Hibs, but they were both at home. So I wonder if they'll like what they did against Celtic and come up with a 5 because it was away at Parkhead. So it's certainly interesting. I think it'll be Sean Blaney who maybe comes in as well, which maybe counteracts my hope that their centre backs are going to be very slow if he comes in. But it'll be interesting. And with Mo Silla parked in front of that, whatever defence they sort of line up with as well. I agreed with you when you said I thought he was really impressive for Dundee, and Dundee looked a really different side when he wasn't available. And actually surprised Dundee didn't keep a hold of him. I think he's a really, really good signing for Livingston.
Yeah, well, he went to some Malaysian club and then like 2 days later signed for Livingston. I vaguely recall from the transfer window, but you really have done your research knowing who Livingston will bring in if they move to a back 5. I'm really impressed. Let's speak about the Aberdeen lineup then, because that's what we spoke about in the group chat. We'd speak about our starting lineup and hopes for the starting lineup. So whilst you get to your notepad and get to the right page, I think goalkeeper is fairly obvious. He didn't play at all in the international window, so well rested on the bench, and a long trip back from Tbilisi the other night. But Dimitar Mitov to starting goals for you?
Dimitar Mitov to starting goals, and I think we'd be well getting Jensen out of the way as well, because Devlin will be suspended, won't he?
Yeah, that was the other one that was easy to knock off. Are you sticking with a back 4 then?
Sticking with a back 4, and I would like to see Alfie Dorrington start. I think it will be Jack Milne in preparation for Europe. However, I would like to see Dorrington start because I think he is right now probably a bit better than Jack Milne. And that's no slant on Jack Milne. Alfie Dorrington's come through at Tottenham, but we need to win games, and I'd like to see Alfie Dorrington playing alongside undoubtedly best centre-back at the club, Mats Kanusta.
Well, in probably the biggest surprise to everybody, I actually picked Jack Milne to start alongside Knusters with the view to the European games coming up, and as I've alluded to, trying to maybe knock that nervousness, because I don't think he's a bad defender. There's just something that I personally feel is a nervousness to his game, gets knocked out. Left back then, with, as you said, Nicky Devlin being suspended, Alexander Jensen, you're deploying at right back, I assume?
I am, yes. Alexander Jensen at right back, and I want to see Gyamfi in action. I probably wouldn't see out the game, as I mentioned earlier, but I want to see him in action. Need to build up his fitness. In hindsight, maybe against Livingston, building up fitness isn't a great idea because I'm sure it'll be a bit rough and tumble at times. But I want to see him. I think he gives. Well, I don't know. I've not seen him a lot, but I think he would give a lot more than sort of Gavin Malloy going forward. Certainly, with Malloy being a centre back by trade, and not Shinnie at left back. You'll find out why later.
Oh, cryptic. Graham Gibb wanting us to start playing with pace. And again, judging by Red Point of Views, tweets from the Bucky game, Gyamfi offers that in assumption. Again, playing against Bucky and Livingston is a different kettle of fish, but I'm in agreement. I'd like to see Gyamfi play. Again, given the fact that he's in the European squad is maybe a nod to what we're looking from him. And the only way to continue to get minutes is by playing him. So for me, regardless if he's able to see out 90, start him is my personal opinion. So yeah, we're almost in agreement so far. Just one player different. So do you want to start with your midfield?
Okay, I've gone for Leighton Clarkson and Graham Shinnie. Now, this could be a tombola of any of the previously mentioned midfielders, and I do have concerns about their sort of physicality, certainly. And it sort of goes against everything I kind of stand for by playing two wee guys in the middle of the park. But Graham Shinnie gives us, a bit of drive, a bit of bite in the midfield. He's a leader. He's our captain. I want to see him start the game. And Leighton Clarkson, now, I would have maybe said Ante Palaversa, but he's not impressed me. He's not impressed me at all. Leighton Clarkson, I think he looks really good against Falkirk prior to the Nicky Devlin red card. And in a game where we're going to have to break down Livingston, I want our best passer of the ball on the park, quite frankly. Leighton Clarkson, Graham Shinnie for me. No doubt we'll see Sivert and Ante Palaversa, but I would like to see those two, the wee fellas. Do it for the wee guys.
I do not have two wee guys, and I don't think Dennis Nielsen will play either. He's not in my team. I've gone for Leighton Clarkson, like you, agree, best passer of the football, impressed against Falkirk. I don't really get some of the criticism that I've seen around Leighton Clarkson so far this season, especially. Again, there was some criticism around his performance against Falkirk, but I think he's the only one that actually tries to take the team forward and take the game by the scruff of the neck. And sometimes he just tries that pass that is a defense breaking pass, but doesn't quite come off. And when it doesn't come off and you're not winning, that's probably why it becomes an easy target. But I've gone for the player that's not impressing you and put him alongside Ante Palaversa, because that is the partnership that we saw throughout pre-season. And for some reason, Jimmy ditched as soon as Sievert was back fit. But I'm going back to what has worked. So that's what I've gone for my centre midfield partnerships. What's your wingers? Because I think this is going to be the interesting one.
Wingers, Carlson. He's been brought into play and he'll play every game that he's fit. I feel like you can't take in a guy with his pedigree on loan. Jimmy's pal as well, Jimmy's boy, and not play him. And I want to see him. I want to see him. Excited to see him. If he can recapture that he's in Alkmaar form or even half of it, then it's certainly an improvement. So Carlson off the left, and I would like Nicholas Milanovic off the right. I think that gives more balance because it's both wingers who are coming inside. It simply gives balance. We're not a bit odd, a bit lopsided. And Keskinen as well, not being impressing me. And he's still not really had that break that we were thinking that we were sort of longing for at the end of last season, because then he went away with the under-21s and then he was involved in the international break for Finland as well, just gone. I'd like, so Milanovic for me. And I think he's looked sharp. I'd like to see him still, when I saw him in pre-season, he was so eager to come in and take on that shot, and we don't really have that in the team, and I want him to do that, certainly. So those two for me. Glenn, what about you?
I am the exact same, but on Nicholas Milanovic, you just mentioned there, how in pre-season he was so eager to cut inside and take on the shot, but he's very rarely seemed keen to take on the shot when he's been cutting inside. But on Nicholas Milanovic, Colin Gale taking the words right out of my mouth when he says he may not start because of his long trip, of course. I think it was last night he was in Auckland, so it'll be a long trip back to Aberdeen, a long travel. I personally would still start him, and then you've got the option of Topi off the bench. And I agree. I think Jesper's here to play, and again, agree Topi's not impressed much, and you're not going to go and sign someone on deadline day to not play them. So, Carlson and Milanovic have to start. So, 2 positions left. What's your top 2? Are you playing 2 up top or 1 in behind?
1 in behind, and I would. Okay, right. I think it will be Oshish. I think it will be Oshish. I'd like to see Armstrong. However, my concerns over how ready he'll be. But again, we've made the point literally for Gyamfi just moments ago. How do you get him ready? He has to play. But I think it will be Oshish. But I'd like to see Armstrong. Essentially, I'm a bit sitting on the fence there. We'll go with Oshish because I think he has looked good in fits and starts, and also he might be the only player who's on the same wavelength as Carlson as well. And again, we need players who are going to unlock that defense of Livingston, who are going to make it very difficult for us. I think Oshish maybe has the quality for that. He's a bit frustrating at times, maybe so far. However, I would like to see him given the start, and then you've got Stuart Armstrong off the bench after an hour or whatever if it's not working out. Oshish and Nizzy Rascal as the striker. We need goals, don't we? We need someone who can take a chance if chances are few and far between against Livingston, because they make it difficult and we make it difficult for ourselves at times. He's the striker right now I've got most confidence in. Scored goals for us last season. Scottish Cup winner. Get Nizzy Rascal back in there.
Yeah, and I've gone like for like. I suppose the concerns about Nicholas Milanovic and the long trip, could you see him drop to the bench? Potentially. Oshish move out to the wing, probably not his favoured position, but an option, which could, if Jimmy wants to go very attacking, allow Kevin Nisbet to drop into the number 10, which we've seen before, and allow Marko Lazatic to start up top, and you go 2 strikers. That's the other option, but my team is the same as you in terms of 2 up top. Oshish in behind Kevin Nisbet.
Well, there's a couple of disparities there for us. You prefer Palaversa to Shinnie and Milne to Dorrington for this one. I'll add, but similar on the whole there. I just think we are in a good position now with the squad, but it's about players' sort of fitness. I saw Carlson's fitness sort of got mentioned on the bench twice for Bologna before joining us against Roma and Como, I believe, if I remember correctly. So you'd think he should be ready and raring to go. And I think he's probably our best player without even seeing him kicking a ball. So I'm excited anyway.
I suppose as well, the other thing, if we're speaking about you're maybe talking about starting Stuart Armstrong, is some of again, it's coming up in the comments, is some of the fitness that we might get out of players. If you're looking at Gyamfi, how many minutes can we get out of him? The one risk, and probably that stuck out to me when writing down the team, and I don't know about you, would be our left-hand side is a new combination, and how do they link up with each other? Both in terms of Carlson defending Gyamfi, if that's the partnership, and how does Gyamfi get up and support Carlson as well. I do also like the sound of Carlson and Milanovic, because as you've alluded to, it's 2 wingers cutting in onto their favoured foot, which is a real kind of key identity to what Jimmy Tillene likes to do as a manager. But again, touching on the long trip for Milanovic, the lack of real game time for Carlson, what are we getting out of them? 60 minutes maybe, but then you've got Topi coming in off the bench and options to move that team about. Nisbet as well hasn't featured much for Millwall, but again can lead the line, and then you bring on Lazetic again after an hour.
Yeah.
So for me, that team that both of us have named, we've probably also can get a good hour out of, but then we really have to see the bench step up as well as the starting 11.
Yeah, and I think as about the squad, it's a big improvement certainly with those 3 latest additions. This was just a rough bench that I wrote down that I'd like to see: Suman, Milne, Malloy, because then Malloy could come on at left back perhaps if needed. That could likewise be Frame for Gyamfi. Palaversa, you still got Paul Vara, Armstrong, Keskinen, Bilalovic as well, and Lazetic, and that's that would be with the exclusion of Sivert, Ambrose, Yengi as well, amongst more. So we are in a real strong spot right now. And if you were talking about Gyamfi or if Armstrong started, you take him off Nisbet, you take him off for Carlson and Milanovic. There is a lot of replacements there on the bench who you wouldn't think would be too much of a drop off, or certainly wouldn't be a drop off. So we're in a strong spot, and it's about giving these guys playing time, because we're going to need them throughout the course of the season. And how else do they get up to speed?
True. My argument is you could also then use Graham Shinney if you don't start him at left back. You've got him as a utility as well. Some people have concerns around your starting a lineup with the small guys, because Livingston posed such a threat from set pieces, as we've seen this season as well as last season. McGowan, Wilson, Tete Yengi's not a small guy either. Any concerns around those comments, Calum?
Yeah, there is some concerns. There's always concerns with me with Aberdeen and set pieces, but I'd like to think that we would be I'd hope. I sort of totally understand it, but I do hope that it's not hinging on the game isn't hinging on us not conceding from set pieces. I really hope that's not the case. Even if it's just we'll score more than you. You can score from 3 set pieces. We'll score 4. Smashing.
I don't know if we'll be able to beat the first man from 4 set pieces, though. That's
I meant not from set pieces. We're terrible at set pieces either way, just in general.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, I mean, if we score 4 goals, that'll be great. It'll give us something really exciting to talk about ahead of cup football, of course, because after this weekend, the tickets for the Motherwell Cup game have gone on general sale today. Of course, the Dons with an opportunity to get back to Hampden, but hopefully get back on track in the league. That is the main priority this weekend. 3 points, an absolute must. It's a must-win game. And join us next week as we go over what is in store this weekend, and then also we look ahead to that Motherwell game. But Calum, glad to have you back, and maybe see you back next week as well.
Yes, certainly. I mean, the Wi-Fi at my parents' house, I've had to escape round here, seek refuge in terms of Wi-Fi purposes, but it's held out. So yeah, perhaps next week we'll see. Fingers crossed. But yeah, it's been great to be back, and I really enjoyed just going through the starting 11s. That was fun.
I know, we might make that a regular feature, or maybe add that for the Motherwell game if you've enjoyed it. Let us know in the comments below. Even on Spotify as well, of course, you can add your comments to there. So any feedback is always welcomed. I know Keith loves sharing the AFC chat feedback. So yeah, we'll love to see it constructive or negative. It's no skin off our nose. But thank you everyone for joining along live here on YouTube. As always, leave a like, subscribe if you're new. Till next time, we'll see you then.